Good evening. This is Friday, April 11th, 207 days until the 2008 presidential election. Breaking news at this hour. Both his Democratic and Republican rivals for the White House are tonight harshly criticizing Senator Barack Obama for comments he made at a fundraiser last Sunday, only revealed on the internet today, 11 days before Pennsylvania holds its crucial, possibly decisive Democratic presidential primary. Our fifth story on the countdown, the small-town Pennsylvanians, of whom Senator Obama said, quote, "It's not surprising then they get bitter, they cling to guns or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them, or anti-immigrant sentiment or anti-trade sentiment as a way to explain their frustrations." There is a lot of context to that quote, but to paraphrase Mae West, context got nothing to do with it. At a fundraiser in Marin County in Northern California near San Francisco last Sunday, Senator Obama appearing to attempt to explain the culture and politics and the skepticism about his candidacy that he perceives in communities in big industrial states, some of them anyway, like Pennsylvania and Ohio and other places across the Midwest. Quoting from Senator Obama's comments, "Our challenge is to get people persuaded that we can make progress when there's not evidence of that in their daily lives. You go into some of these small towns in Pennsylvania, and like a lot of small towns in the Midwest, the jobs have been gone now for 25 years and nothing's replaced them. And they fell through the Clinton administration and the Bush administration, and each successive administration has said that somehow these communities are going to regenerate, and they have not. And it's not surprising then they get bitter, they cling to guns or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them, or anti-immigrant sentiment or anti-trade sentiment as a way to explain their frustrations." The other two candidates in this race for president responding tonight, like starved lions might. Senator Clinton from big city Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, earlier this evening.
Pennsylvanians don't need a president who looks down on them. They need a president who stands up for them, who fights for them, who works hard for your futures, your jobs, your families.
Meantime, a spokesman for Senator McCain saying in an issued statement, the condescension and elitism inherent in the statement is remarkable. The notion that because people are in a tough economy, that's why they go to church, that's why they have guns, that's why they're anti-immigrant. It is a remarkable series of condescensions to the heart and soul of this country, the people who live in small-town America. In a return statement, the Obama campaign responding to the Senator McCain portion of the blowback, quote, "If John McCain wants a debate about who's out of touch with the American people, we can start by talking about the tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans that he once said offend his conscience, but now wants to make permanent." Let us now call in Richard Wolff, our senior White House correspondent for Newsweek magazine and MSNBC analyst as well. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
This statement in Marin County on Sunday was about cynicism towards government by voters, towards candidates by voters. It's pretty heady intellectual stuff. Is any of that context going to be included in this, or are we watching a firestorm start?
Well, there's clearly grounds to attack Senator Obama for these comments, and he misspoke pretty badly here in the sense that he lumped together both economic and political disaffection with two cultural issues, guns and religion. And that was a huge mistake, which his opponents will seize on and have seized on already. However, if this debate is one about elitism, and as the McCain campaign has characterized it, then he also has grounds to attack his opponents, both Democratic and Republican, because they are far wealthier than he is, and their positions in life are of a more elevated status than his. So this is going to go back and forth. I don't know how much of a firestorm it develops over the weekend, but he's going to have some explaining to do.
The McCain punch is understandable if it does not leave him open for a return volley, as you suggest. But how useful is it for Senator Clinton to go after this with guns blazing, as we heard in that clip right there? Because that sentence right before the bitter quote reads in part, "and they fell through the Clinton administration and the Bush administration." How carefully does Senator Clinton have to tread in this one?
Well, look, she's in the fight of her career and trying to keep everything alive. She needs to have a very significant margin of victory in Pennsylvania. So really, you throw everything here. It's back to the kitchen sink strategy. And so, yes, of course, you pounce on a misstatement like this and try and make of it as much as possible. The question here for Democratic voters is who can understand the situation of people who are suffering economic hardship in Pennsylvania the best, and Senator Clinton is reverting back to her classic theme of the fighting candidate. Barack Obama, if he's sensible, will try and say, look, this is how I'm coming to terms with voters not just in Pennsylvania, but the voters who supported me in Pennsylvania and in parts of Illinois which have suffered too.
Is there any indication that there's partying tonight in the Clinton campaign? Because this obviously has the shape, if it is, whether or not we'll have to see, but it has the shape of the manna from heaven that they have been hoping for, does it not?
It does, and it's a very useful diversion from this extended discussion about the Bosnia comments and about former President Clinton and his revival of that whole issue. So when you're in a hole and someone else digs another hole, you celebrate.
There is a statement just out from the GOP in Indiana calling on congressional Democrats to denounce Obama's remarks. In part, they're hitting here. It's full, Indiana, that is full of decent people who support gun rights because they believe in the Constitution and place a premium on religion because they're people of faith. Obviously, that's where the attack is going to be, the attack lines are going to go after Obama on guns and religion, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's important for Senator Obama is that actually he has established a reputation, both through his own writing and his own speeches, as someone who actually communicates in quite a nuanced way about the Second Amendment. I've heard him talk at campaign rallies about his support for the Second Amendment and that it's not just about militias. This is an individual right to have guns, and also about religion. So he's got to revert back to a way of talking about these issues that is not as simplistic as the snippet from a fundraiser suggests.
And speaking of the snippet of the fundraiser, do we have any idea about the provenance of this, how he says it on Sunday outside San Francisco, and it gets onto the internet on Friday afternoon as we get towards single digits in terms of days left in Pennsylvania?
We don't know, actually, but one thing that we spent through the day is waiting for the campaign to come up with the full context of these comments. So even they took some time coming up with the audio and the full soundbite of this. So how it emerged, why it emerged now, we don't know.
Another sub-story for next week. Richard Wolff, our political analyst, Newsweek senior White House correspondent. Great, thanks for your time. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Keith.